today we have Monica and Daniel from the Child and Family Center, and they are going to be discussing summer boredom and healthy coping skills. Monica and Daniel, if you want to give yourselves a quick introduction about your roles with the agency and what you guys do.
Sure. So thank you again for having us. My name is Monica Dedia. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I am the program manager of Access, Crisis, and Community Engagement at the Child and Family Center. I wear a lot of hats, a lot of my roles, but the biggest role that I have is about supporting folks getting their kids into mental health treatment and other services that are needed, as well as our outreach program. So happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
And hey, I'm Daniel, and I am an outreach specialist over at Child and Family Center. And usually my day-to-day is kind of educating youth and providing healthy content through our Instagram profile function, educate our youth in the community with healthy relationships and a lot of teen dating violence so far.
Perfect. Thank you both for being here. So why don't we go ahead and get started?
Wonderful. So our topic today is really talking about beating summer boredom and talking about healthy coping skills. And we really can't have this conversation without talking about how the pandemic has really impacted our lives in the past 15, 16 months. And I think the big thing just starting with is that, now as things are opening up and we're anticipating changes going back to quote unquote back to normal. What does that mean for our youth and what does that mean for our day-to-day within our families? We have seen in the past 16 months or so that there has been an increase of social isolation within our youth due to all the impacts of the pandemic. And our youth have essentially had to adapt to so much, distance learning, not seeing their friends, so many different formats, becoming, IT directors of their own life and managing Zoom school. And it's been a year of adapting to that world. And now somewhat quickly, we're adapting back to, again, quote unquote, normal. So there may be increased anxiety, increased feelings of, what does this mean? What is safe? All of those questions. And so basically today we wanted to talk a little bit about how to support your teens, your kids in healthy activities while recognizing really the unique situation that we are in with COVID and coming on the post-pandemic side of things. So the first thing I really wanted to address today was, as we look to build structure within our youth, finding a balance so that we don't overschedule our kids with so many activities, in a sense, trying to make up for the last year and a half, but then also not having any structure at all to where there's opportunity to engage in, let's say, more unhealthy coping skills or unhealthy activities such as drug use, substance use, drinking, risky behaviors, all of those things. So the very first thing that I suggest when setting up routines and structure for the summer is starting a conversation with your teen, identifying what are some of those interests that they have that they may want to participate in the summer. Just a quick look at the Parks and Rec website with under the Santa Clarita Valley. There's going to be music nights. There's going to be so many events that are coming as we're allowed to go back and engage out in person. But starting again, we don't want to make all these assumptions that our kids want to get out there right away. Some kids may feel so ready after being pent up for a year to get out there, see their friends, go to parks, go to the movies, all of those fun things that we took for granted in a sense, pre-pandemic. But there might be some kids that really worry about it. So again, starting that conversation of what do they feel comfortable with, and recognizing that sometimes our kids have different ways of communicating. Some may be very, very verbal and talk exactly, what they want, what they're feeling. Others, depending on how they're feeling, may not feel comfortable to share. And what we may see is actually what we may define as attitude or being disobedient or talking back or whatnot. And in those moments, I really suggest really just taking a step back and, I'm here if you want to talk about something. I recognize that the world is shifting from one moment to the other. A lot has happened in the last year, and you may have some questions or concerns or thoughts about what is the next month going to look like? What is it going to be like going back to school? Will school be in person? So kind of taking a step back when we're looking at what the summer may look like, and really allowing your child to be a part of that journey with you and make some of that conjoint decision making so that they feel like they have kind of like a hand on the steering wheel. And one thing that I love to share with parents is sometimes we really want to be there for our kids, and there's a lot of scary things out there. And what I always say is reassure, not rescue. So if there's a concern with your child, we want to support them in finding the facts, addressing what their concerns are, but we don't want to rescue them so that they don't have the opportunity to learn how to navigate difficult things within their world. So if these things come up where you see your child isolating more, we don't want to rescue and do things for them. Let's have a conversation and have them have some power in that conversation. And then again, setting that balance. So we'll shift a little bit and talk about, I think, a hot topic as well, based, what had happened in the pandemic. There's been a lot more focus on social media, screen time, and what all of that means for youth as well. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Daniel to take on this topic.
Thank you. A lot of families and youth might be eager to kind of go back out and do, quote unquote, normal things now, but some may still see themselves being on screen for 8+ hours a day. And families and parents as well are putting so much time into their own personal screens that they kind of shut out their one-on-one time with their child. And now more than ever is the best time to kind of see what's out there, if it's safe, of course, for them to kind of go out there and see what they can do. There are many activities, of course, a lot of them already opening up, or even signups already for fall activities. But in fact, parents said that about 82% of the time they spent on digital devices are devoted just to personal media. So they're not really like learning anything. It's just personal consumption. And it's a great time for parents to kind of use this time now to kind of disconnect from those things and see what their kid is into, and maybe they can use the time to go and do an activity together, maybe go on a hike, maybe do a project together, start a hobby, or our parent can kind of start learning some of the things that their kid is into and kind of start learning the lingo and the wordings that they do. But also there are so many things that parents don't really know about what their kids are doing online. The apps or the games that they're playing, and what the content entails and what's in there and what they're discussing or what are they sharing, who they're talking to, etc. So there are many things parents should consider. There are definitely a lot of apps that I have here to share. My top 5 probably personal control apps, at least for this year, 2021. The overall probably would be Net Nanny. That's a good app. For teens, probably the app Moment. And for younger children, probably Custodio. And for monitoring, there's an app called Bark. And for location tracking, Family Time, and of course, Apple provides Find My Phone for family, or Find My Friends. I forgot which one it is. And we'll provide the list somewhere here. I'll give it to you to put it somewhere for this one. But this kind of helps to kind of monitor what the kids are doing on their devices, what they're looking at and stuff. And of course, each app has their own features, and I think some of them have like a subscription service as well, but you guys can navigate that. But also the youth today are very, very, very tech savvy. I know you mentioned, Julia, the age gap between the child and the parent. And usually the kids tend to be very, very tech savvy, that what app does what to
Yes.
do, what the devices feature. And education for the parent is very, very important as well, just so they can kind of at least have some sort of control and kind of be able to navigate themselves. I'm a big tech person as well. I'm always keeping up with this kind of thing. So I'll recommend a few YouTube channels that are kind of around tech and phones and computers and whatnot. The first one is MKBHD. He kind of does a lot of cell phones like iPhone, Android devices, and kind of goes through the features and stuff that might be a lot more educational, more in depth. I Just Seen is another one. She does a lot of Apple Now diversifying. Unbox Therapy kind of dives into tech beyond kind of cell phones. Also, Your Average Consumer does the same thing, but mostly on phones. And The Verge are another one. Those are great channels to kind of learn tech and see what's out there, so you could kind of know what your kid is talking about and kind of be able to kind of be on par with what they know as well. But with kids being so much on devices as well, being able to kind of restrict the time, maybe set a time where there'll be no cell phone usage between family. And of course, parents have to set the example. We both can't say, oh no, you can't use your phone, but then your child or your teenager sees you on your phone on the dinner table, maybe while they're talking to you about school or what they were doing with their friends. And that kind of sends the message that, it's okay for you to be on your phone. So why should I listen to you when you're on your phone all the time? So it's good to kind of monitor your own cell phone usage as well, to kind of set the example for your child. Also, there are so many devices that are connected to the internet that your child can access, even if you maybe take the phone away. Kind of good to know what devices are connected, maybe like your gaming console, your TV, your tablet, your laptop, and see what devices your kid has access to that you might need to kind of pull away and put them away somewhere. And if maybe there's some old devices that are laying around that your kid might have access to when you take that phone away. So it's kind of good to kind of recycle or donate those devices, because you don't want them sneaking in that maybe when they're in bed or somewhere, and they can kind of just sneak that in as well. Also, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends acceptable amount of screen time. Of course, it varies between ages, but they recommend no screen time for children under 2. And of course, we've all been at the restaurant where you see the little baby watching something on their parents' phones, or they probably even have their own tablet. So they don't recommend kids from, I think, 7 and below to have their own devices, because they're hooked to those. And it'll be really hard to kind of take that device away with them not getting upset at you and crying.
With that
Yes.
said, what do you recommend for households where there are children of multiple ages, where let's say there's a little one under 2 and older sister or brother is using the tablet and the little one wants to take the tablet? What would you guys recommend for parents who are struggling with that?
Oh, I would probably, based on the stuff that I read, if there are multiple children, maybe set a time where you can all kind of come together, have like a family time where maybe content can be consumed as a family instead of individually. But let's say the older brother or the older sister is doing something. It might be homework and you never know, but the child thinks he's probably playing. So maybe taking that little one and kind of do something one-on-one is probably a lot more recommended. And maybe the other one, the older children could probably maybe not use that device, or maybe request not to use a device if probably they're doing something that needs to be done. But if it's not, doesn't have to be done, maybe kind of bring them in, and maybe an activity could be done as a family.
That's great advice, because I think although the little ones, they're not experienced, they don't understand the summer break as well as the older ones do. However, they are observing everything that their older siblings are doing. And so when summer boredom hits and their older siblings are on their phones, their tablets, the video games all day, that becomes normalized to the younger children. So these are really great tips. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's also like Monica said, to kind of talk to your child about some of those boundaries, or kind of let them kind of also have their own way in a lot of these things. So when you're trying to maybe restrict or take reins back of the media consumption, have your child kind of input as well. So it's kind of not authoritarian, I'm telling you what to do, and then you'll get a lot more pushback from the child.
I think it's great, you know, what Daniel's bringing up, that it all comes back to modeling, right? So first and foremost, our kids look up to parents. They're looking up to parents and learning how to navigate lives. So if a child is seeing their primary caregiver, their parent, using their phone 24/7, they're okay, this is normal, this is allowed. And if we try to put something out there that contradicts that, they're like, well, wait, what are you talking about? This is what I see you doing. So we really have to take ownership ourselves, you know, as parents, saying that our kids are sponges. They are smart, they are bright, and they know what they're doing. And what we put out there in the world, they see everything. They see everything. You see it a lot with our younger ones, right? We see, like, in that 3 to 5 range, they begin showing us role playing. They're basically exploring their world based off of what they've observed from their family unit. When we go up to, you know, ages, you know, 12 to 17, now our kids are in this individuation stage. It's both amazing and frustrating as a parent, because our kids are now becoming themselves, they're developing their own sense of identity and sense of selves. And part of that is pushing back and having their own ideas that may differ from the parents' ideas, and how to allow all of that, again, by setting that initial kind of foundation for your child. So when you provide, or when your child gets the device for the first time, you sit down together and create the rules for that device. What are going to be the limits? You know, at nighttime, to reduce screen time at night, because we know that can impact sleep cycles. Where is going to be the centralized storage unit for our devices for everyone in the family? What is appropriate content to use on your phone? What are some of the consequences for not utilizing your device correctly? So from the very onset, having those conversations and setting up those expectations can reduce concerns down the line. Of course, that has to be continually reinforced, because one conversation isn't enough. We don't want to avoid having conversations that tend to be more taboo or more difficult out of our own fear and anxiety, because our kids can feel that. You know, we talk about the example of having the birds and the bees talk. It's a very uncomfortable conversation, but a very necessary conversation to have with our kids, because if they don't get their information from us, they will get it from someone else. And we don't know if that someone else will be a reliable source. So being the information source for your kids, teaching them how to find accurate information, and setting those foundations, setting those again, that baseline, so that when they get into the stage of 12 to 17, where they're developing who they're going to be as adults, they already have that really strong foundation.
Wonderful. Is there anything you guys feel would be important for parents to know heading into this summer when dealing with their kids of all ages, tackling boredom, and how to cope so that they don't go into risky behavior, such as substance use and other behaviors that are dangerous?
Definitely. And going back into modeling healthy coping skills as an umbrella can be positive, neutral, or negative. So there are quote unquote coping skills such as self-harm. That's actually a coping skill, but it's a maladaptive, unhelpful coping skill. So is drug use, alcohol, all those risky behaviors in a sense may have a coping skill element that your child may be using to address some type of underlying issue. So again, this starts with the caregiver of modeling what are appropriate coping skills. So what do you do as a caregiver when you're stressed? If you've had a really difficult day managing the family unit, you're trying to balance work, supporting your kids, being a spouse, all of these things that come with life. What do you do when you're really stressed? Because again, your kids are watching how to manage stress or how to manage things. So coping skills have a couple different ways, but the biggest thing I think the takeaway would be activating all 5 of our senses. So when we are stressed, our body actually goes into what's called a fight, flight, freeze response based off of how we respond to stress. So our blood pressure may go up, our breathing may become more superficial and in our chest, our heart rate goes up, we're having a physiological response to some type of stressor. And recognizing that activating all 5 of our senses allows us to regulate our bodies, which then allows us to regulate our minds and emotions. So modeling for your kids when you're feeling stressed or when you see them a bit dysregulated, let's go around the room and name 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear. And going through all of those senses to activate that, because to first regulate our bodies and not allow that prolonged stressor to go on and then unnoticed and then undealt with, we first have to regulate our bodies. So when we look into risk-seeking behaviors such as substance use, again, various different types of risk-taking behaviors, this is a sense coping with something that is very difficult for the child. Throughout our teen years, there is this element of there might be an exploration, there might be peer pressure, there's all these other elements that may go into it. But again, the very core foundation is if your child is having any strong emotion. I've been saying stress a lot, but this can be anxiety, sadness, anger, the whole full spectrum of really strong emotions. Providing that model of how to deal with those strong emotions first will again set that foundation. And I think Daniel and I can also just talk about, what are ways to talk to your child about, let's set up some positive activities to set up some passions. Where does your child have passion, whether it be extracurricular, sports, art, the various means of art, hiking, walking, being with their family, board games, the list is endless. Having the child have some type of power in that decision-making process to set up some structure and things that they really enjoy. And then also because of the lack of social engagement, really allowing them to have some peer space and knowing who their peers are. So having a conversation before they go out with, who are the parents, who is this person? Let's talk about, decision-making skills. Every decision has various different impacts. So let's talk about that. Daniel, anything else just in regards to healthy coping or just kind of setting out these healthy boundaries within the summer to reduce risk-taking behavior?
No, yeah, like you were saying, definitely have that one-on-one time with the child for sure. Yeah, finding that hobby, finding that passion, or maybe there's something that the parent might know maybe from growing up that they can probably pass on as well, whether if it's cooking or a craft or building or working on a car, whatever that might be. Maybe there's a shared passion for a sport, a team, whatever that might be as well. But going back to the device usage, when having that healthy time, make sure to have no devices unless it's part of the activity. Maybe you guys are starting to record this for a project or on YouTube or something. You guys are doing something together. Then the device usage is fine. but in those, when you guys are working on something together, it's good to kind of keep it device free. So there's that bonding time, creating the memories and not having your eyes glued to a screen.
One example I'll share just very quickly is in working with a family, as we move back to, again, the quote unquote normal, what can we maintain from what we've learned from this time in the pandemic? We've had a lot of time to really be close to one another in one household or whatever it may be. And this person was sharing that all the things I would typically do to keep my kid entertained, I didn't have access to anymore. So she actually decided to allow her kid to teach her how to use the video games. And it sounds like counterintuitive, right? Like I want to limit my kids' screen time, but now I'm going to join into it. But the magical thing that occurred is that she was able to see a little sneak peek into what her child is doing on those video games, looking to see, first off, is this appropriate for their age level? What do they love about this? And really the talent sometimes that comes with it. And beyond that, it also allows to set a boundary. So you teach me how to play this video game, and then I'm going to try to, do this with you, but we're going to limit it to 60 minutes. And then you also have that thing, okay, we're in our last game. Let's make this run really, really count. And then you've had that opportunity to bond with your child, see something that's in their world, but you're also setting that limitation to that screen time will be done when we complete this together, and then we're going to move on to whatever it may be.
I love that. I think that's, like you said, it gives them an opportunity to bond, learn about their world, and then move on and set the boundaries. That is amazing. Daniel and Monica, you guys have 2 events that are coming up in the near future. Do you guys want to talk about that and share?
Definitely. I think Daniel's going to share our screen here. We have 2 in-person workshops that we're offering this summer. I'm not going to remember the dates offhand. I'm going to pull them up here. But we have one workshop that's going to be, I believe, 3rd week of July on Wednesday. That will be for our LGBTQ plus youth, ages 12 to 17, and it's going to be an art-based workshop. We're really just exploring identities, exploring relationships and ourselves, and building healthy connections with peers in a really safe place in person. Again, building up some social capacity that we haven't had in a while, and expressing that through art. So we'll get those dates for you in a moment. And then I believe on July 28th, this will be another workshop that we're offering. What Daniel's showing right now is our PRISM workshop that will be July 21st. Again, the whole purpose is to foster healthy relationships through this medium of art. We're going to have various mediums in place. And then our second workshop on July 28th, this again focuses on healthy relationships. It's called Owning It. Basically, again, fostering those connections between peers. It will be for youth ages 12 to 17. This one will focus more so on building like vision boards, speaking about what makes healthy relationships, and how to foster that moving forward as we transition from the pandemic into post-pandemic. Both workshops are going to have this wellness component, so we will be speaking to, positive coping skills, modeling that, and focusing on how to promote wellness in various different facets of life. So we're very, very excited about these workshops. And I'll share just really briefly some of the services that we provide at the Child and Family Center. So we are located here in Santa Clarita, right across the street from Bowman High School. We also have a site in Palmdale, and we provide mental health services for youth age from birth to 21. We also provide substance use services for individuals ages 12 to 65. And we have a domestic violence program, our outreach center. And we also have a 24-hour hotline for those that are experiencing or exposed to domestic violence and intimate partner violence. We support with, court advocacy, and getting restraining orders. We have parenting classes. Right now, our services are a mix of telehealth, phone, and in person, but we are moving towards coming back into services in person as well. So you can, I'm sure Julia will link in our information. You can always give us a call if you have any questions about the services that we provide, or even, when do I need to utilize service? When should I reach out?